again, everyone. Welcome to Steel City Mukbang Variety Pod. I am your host, Tara Molina, also known as T-Rex, T-E-E-R-E-X. You can call me that anytime you see me on the street. We had started a podcast earlier in the week on racism. I wasn't sure if I was going to continue on with it or not, but I have decided to go on and have another couple parts to it. This is part 2, and it is going to basically talk about the components of racism. There are 6 components of racism. There's individual racism, interpersonal racism, institutional racism, structural, systemic racism. Those kind of go hand in hand, so we're counting it as one. Cultural racism and internalized racism. Now that's a lot, so I'm not going to speak on all of those today, but I am going to choose a couple to talk about. And I decided I would pick institutional and structural systemic racism and break those down for you. Under institutional racism, you will find DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which we talked a little bit about that in part 1 of episode 3. And I'm going to go ahead and speak a little bit more about DEI. DEI was designed to make an even playing field for all people. It didn't matter what color, your race, your creed, your national origin, sexual orientation, none of that mattered. However, the argument from white people was that DEI favored minorities, blacks. They didn't even consider handicapped people, gay people, Muslim people, people of any other religion. They never even considered those people to be minorities. They automatically associated with black people. Their thought process was that it was reverse discrimination and that black people were being chosen above white people, and sooner or later, black people being hired or given scholarships or whatever the case may be would be favored above white people, and white people would no longer have the upper hand. That's how it was viewed. That's how DEI was viewed among some white people. And need I say, mainly racist, bigoted white people. Minorities fired back on that argument that before DEI, everything was reversed. More white people were being hired than black people or any other minorities. It was going to be typically a white male above anyone else that was going to get the job or get the scholarship or funding for school, and etc. and so on. And that's exactly how it was. That was the reason for the creation of DEI in the first place, to create diversity, equity, and inclusion for all. So if you have a pool of 10 people and you've got 5 white and 5 black, out of that pool, they were going to pick 5 white people. They were going to choose 5 white people and maybe 1 black person. It was never going to be an even playing field, no matter how qualified each side was. So, hence, DEI came to be. It was never meant to push white people out. It was never meant to hire more black than white. It was meant to be more even and equal. So if I hire 2 white people, I'll hire 2 black people. If I hire 5 white people, I'll hire 5 black people. it stays even. No one is going to surpass or outdo or become supreme over the other. It was meant to remain equal. So getting rid of DEI means we're going back to where we were, to where minorities weren't getting hired much at all. So the playing field started to look like this. These are all white people, these are black people. It's going to go back to that now instead of where we almost had it equal. It's going to go back. So, do we start DEI back up again so that black people can once again get jobs and handicapped people can have ramps built on buildings where they need to get in? Because that was what DEI was for, to make sure that handicapped people had access to places that they needed to be, to make sure that people weren't being snubbed because they were of Muslim religion when you walk into a place and you have to wear your hijab. Were they going to turn you away because of that? This was all DEI. So do we go back so that all the minorities can once again be equal to the white people? All the minorities and the marginalized groups say yes. The racist, bigoted white people who are so afraid that white race is being watered down, they all say no. They want to remain above. They want to remain supreme. They want to be above everyone else because they think they're superior. So technically, we're going back in time to where minorities were not equal to white people. What should have happened was keep DEI. Don't touch it. Don't disassemble it. Don't disband it. Keep it and reassure the white people that seemed butthurt. Just reassure them that the hiring process will remain equal. We won't hire any more blacks than we do whites. If there's already 10 white people working in a place and a job comes available, we need to add some black people. Why add another white person? Especially when the people that are applying are all qualified. You've already got 10 white people there and you haven't given one black person, one handicapped person, one gay person, one Muslim person. You haven't given any of those a chance. You just keep hiring white men. So that would be the only way that black people would be hired. If you have the qualifications and they have not been hiring, the company or organization has not been hiring black people at all. Keep DEI. Let the crybabies know that their jobs are not at stake. Let them know that no one is taking over your whiteness. You'll still have a job, but so will the head of the household of this black family also be able to get a job. If they had just laid that out for them, maybe they would have understood, or maybe not. Maybe they would have been so pressed about it that they couldn't even hear past. You're not being erased in America. There's still going to be white people. But I think that is the fear. I really do believe that is the fear. White people believe that America is watering down so far that they will eventually be extinct. That's paranoia in and of itself. Institutional racism is the racism that is built into organizations, schools, businesses, and other systems. Like hiring practices, like we're on the subject of DEI, like hiring practices that favor certain racial groups, or school funding that disadvantages communities of color. That's an example of institutional racism. Structural, systemic racism. It's the way that institutions and policies work together across society to create long term racial inequalities. So, institutional racism and structural systemic racism work hand in hand. They're almost the same. Almost. There's only slight differences. For example, structural racism describes how social structures such as education, housing, employment, and healthcare are organized in such a way to benefit one group while disadvantaging another. School funding is a great example. You'll find that some schools in affluent neighborhoods, majority Caucasian neighborhoods, will receive funding, whereas a school in the ghetto or the barrio won't. And it's all set up throughout history, even though in some cases it's illegal. When they find loopholes to get around it, or just simply break the law and risk being sued, it's going to happen. They will go ahead and break that law in order to disadvantage a marginalized group. The effects of structural racism shapes the outcome for generations to come. I have just a few stats on funding in the economy for structural systemic racism. The median household income in 2023 for white families was $81,060 a year. Black families, $53,850 annually. That's about 66% of white income. The median household wealth of white people was $250,000, and black households $27,000. That report is from the Federal Reserve in 2023. Home ownership among whites 74% and blacks 44%. That comes from the inequality in lending. Banks are more likely to loan money to families in affluent neighborhoods with high appreciation rates than they are to loan to black families in disparaged neighborhoods with declining value in homes, depreciating value in homes. You may say, well, that sounds fair. The banks want to get their money. Just because a family moves into a disparaged, broken down neighborhood doesn't mean that that bank is not going to get their money. If they just simply loan the family enough to get the home, I'm sure every intention is there to pay the bank back. The family is working, they're going to make that mortgage payment, and everything will be fine. But it's a psychological thing that automatically banks that are usually in control by the majority, which is white people, they don't want to give that chance to a black family. It's just a psychological, systemic problem that originated from decades ago. Sad but true. That's why there are more white homeowners than there are black homeowners. And the same happens when it comes to small businesses. The Small Business Administration is less likely to fund a black owned business than they are to fund a white owned business. Another sad but true fact. Historically, black colleges are underfunded by an estimated $12.6 billion over the last several decades. That statistic comes from the Department of Education, 2023. So you can see how it's off balance. You can see where equality has just fallen by the wayside. There seems to be no such thing as equality anymore. The historical roots of structural systemic racism stem back to slavery, segregation, and discriminatory laws that were intentionally designed to exclude people of color from full participation in society. Even after civil rights reforms, many of those inequities have still continued on. Another place that we find it is with mass incarceration. Systemic racism focuses on how systems and institutions collectively perpetuate racial inequality. This includes the criminal justice policies that disproportionately target people of color. That is why we have so many mass incarcerations of black people. It is an injustice that starts within the criminal justice system. That has always been the case. Will we ever get past it? It looks like there may be a bleak outcome at this moment. Black Americans represent 13% of the U.S. population, but nearly 38% of the prison population. That report came from the Bureau of Justice Statistics in 2024. Latino Americans make up 19% of the population, and around 23% of them are within the incarcerated population. White Americans comprise 59% of the U.S. population, but only about 30% are prisoners. Black men are 5 times more likely to be incarcerated than white men, and in some states the rate is up to 10 times higher. Lifetime likelihood of imprisonment of black men is 1 in 3. Latino men is 1 in 6. White men is 1 in 17. Black women are incarcerated at 1.6 times the rate of white women. Nearly 60% of those serving life without parole for non-violent offenses are black. The U.S. spends more than $80 billion annually on incarceration, disproportionately impacting minority communities. I know there's probably a bunch of you out there saying, well, if they didn't do anything wrong, didn't commit any crimes, this wouldn't be the case, they wouldn't be in jail. That's beside the point. The point is, black people are committing the same crimes as white people, but black people are getting more time in prison for it than white people. That is the problem. That is the point. Not, well, they shouldn't have committed the crime. They committed it and they deserve punished, but they deserved punished at the same degree and same level as their white counterparts. That's what this is about. Many people will try to deflect from that. People always want to inject what they feel is the reason for black people being here and white people being here economically. On my TikTok page, I run into so much racism, it's sad. And the general consensus among the racists that attack me there is that black people just aren't doing anything. We're not trying. We're just sitting back blaming the white man for our disparities. And that's simply not true. They simply don't understand systemic racism. They do not understand how things that were done 60 years ago have gotten into the system of the United States of America and still systemically affects black and brown Americans. They either don't understand it genuinely, or they're misunderstanding it on purpose because they don't want to hear it. It's one or the other. They can't possibly be that stupid. It's easy to understand, especially when it's broken down to you, especially if you had any interest in paying attention to history, which most of them want to call false and fiction. I believe it's because they can't believe in their mind that their ancestors could have been so barbaric. I think that's part of it. Guilt. But some of the real reasons, perceived reasons for the racial disparities, I'm just going to touch on the ones in home ownership and income, because there's so many. And I could go all day long talking about them, but we're limited on time. Why home ownership is easier for white people? Historical discrimination and exclusionary policies. Redlining. Restrictive covenants and discriminatory federal housing programs historically denied black applicants access to mortgages and subsidies. These policies segregated neighborhoods and limited opportunities for black families to build equity. Main reason? Because we're black families. No other. I have a quick story to tell you that happened to me over 40 years ago. And I had just moved to Pittsburgh and I was looking for an apartment. I called on the phone. Back then it was find an apartment in the newspaper, circle it, and call the number attached to the newspaper ad and set up an appointment. That's how it was in the 80s. So I did that. I found an apartment. I didn't know Pittsburgh yet. I had just moved here. I didn't know that there were sections of Pittsburgh that were just flat out racist and didn't want black people to live there. I had no clue. I was just calling numbers that said apartments for rent. How would I know? So I called for an apartment to set up an appointment to see one. The guy was so happy and so nice on the phone, and so was I. My husband spoke with a deep, very, very deep Hispanic accent. If you didn't know him, it would be hard to understand, or if you didn't understand Spanish, he's hard to understand. But he spoke with a very deep Hispanic accent. So I made the phone call and spoke to a nice guy. He said, yeah, we have that 2-bedroom apartment. It's available. When do you want to come out? And I said, well, we could come out right now. He said, okay, great. Gave me the directions and said, I'll see you in a bit. So my husband and I jumped in the car, drove across town, and we walked up to the door of the building, and there was a guy standing there, Caucasian man. And he looked at us really strange. And I don't remember his name, but I know that I said whatever it was. Hi, are you whoever? And he gets this look like, how do you know my name? Like, why do you know my name? That type of look on his face. And I said, I'm Tara. I just spoke to you on the phone about half an hour ago. You said we could come and see the apartment you have for rent. His eyes almost fell out of his head to see a black woman and a Hispanic man who looks like a black man standing in front of him. It seemed as though he wanted to sink through the stairs. He stuttered for a minute and he said, "Well, that apartment is gone. I just rented it." My husband and I look at each other like, that's weird. Why didn't you just tell me that on the phone like 30 minutes ago? You just now rented it? Like just this second? Like, I don't understand. It's not available. And he walked away. That was my first experience of housing discrimination. I knew immediately. After he walked away the way he did, I knew immediately at that point. Because he definitely had an attitude, and we were the last type of people that he wanted to see on earth. So we left and just continued on our search, but he thought he was speaking to a white person over the phone. Clearly, because he was shocked to see us. So, yes, housing discrimination does exist. Surely does. And the same goes with buying a home. Banks do not want to loan black families money. Just last year, I jumped through hoops to get a loan for my house. I jumped through hoops. And my former landlord is the one I purchased the house from. And he said, "Wow, this is really taking a long time for the loan process to go through for you." I said, "Yeah, see, I know. I'm the one going through it. It's like 4 months." He said, "Wow, that's so odd. My daughter just got a house and it only took about 3 weeks." Dude, did you happen to notice? Did you happen to notice? I'm not the same color as your daughter. That's basically what it was. Basically. They believe that black families can't come up with that outrageous down payment. White families generally hold greater wealth and inheritances, making down payments for homes much easier. Where black families often have less intergenerational wealth to draw from, making it harder to buy or keep homes. The same thing happened when I was buying this house. I was telling you how hard it was for me to get the loan. The last loan company that I worked with, because I went through about 4, and they were turning me down left and right. The last one, they they said to me, "Well, we can get you in, but it's going to be a large down payment. You're going to have to put down a big down payment." And I said, "Okay. Okay. I hear you. Let's go. If I can get the house, then let's go. How much is the down payment?" And it seemed as though they made it as high as they possibly could. They told me the down payment would be $27,000. It's like they wanted to catch me and say, "Oh, so you can't come up with that type of money. You're not going to be able to get that house." But that wasn't the way it was supposed to work out. I was supposed to get the house. When he told me $27,000, I said, "Okay." And the lady that was working with the real estate company, her eyes got this wide. And I looked back at her the same way, like, What? She said, it's $27,000 down payment. That's okay. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It's okay. And they proceeded to push my paperwork through. In shock, they pushed my paperwork through. So every now and then it does happen for a black person, but it's hard. It's very hard. Homes in white neighborhoods tend to appreciate faster due to public investment and local economic development. Disinvested areas with high black populations often experience slower growth or even depreciation. So that is, the value of the home in white neighborhoods goes up from the time you purchase it. You might buy it for $50,000, but by the time you're ready to sell, it's now $100,000. But for black people, it's the opposite. You may buy a home for $50,000, and by the time you're ready to sell, it's worth $30,000. These are not coincidences. These are real life situations for marginalized groups. That gives you an idea of why there is racism, why it continues, but it never tells us what we're going to do about it. Well, what can we do about it? I'm going to get ready to go, but I want to show you this clip of why I think it'll be a long time before we can do anything about it. I'm trying to do my part, but we kind of need some white allies. Like, more. Take a look at this comment that one Caucasian woman left for another Caucasian woman. She's basically chastising the Caucasian woman who wants to buy a Black history book to educate herself and her child on Black history. We have this troll chastising her because of that. I'm going to read it. Just read along with me. She says, just another white woman agreeing because she feels like she's obligated. Look at me. I agree with everything and don't think for myself. Hell, why not teach my child? She really doesn't want this woman to learn about Black history. She doesn't want the woman to teach her child. So I made a video, reply back to this troll, telling her that this woman did use her own mind. She did use her own mind because she didn't end up like you, troll. You're the one who is following along behind all the racist, bigoted sheep and continuing to teach and continuing to teach racism to your children, because apparently you're going to continue to do that. You're the reason that racism keeps growing and spreading, because now you're passing it on to another whole generation. Someone passed it on to you because you're not born racist. We're not born bigoted. That's some stuff that we learn along the way. And it's up to you to have your own mind and turn away from that hatred of other people. Hatred for them because of a skin color that they cannot change. What are you going to tell your child? You see that brown person over there? You see that black person over there? Their skin color is not as good as ours. Is that what you're going to tell them? And you're so proud of that? And you don't want another Caucasian person to try to work toward changing it? That is a lowlife of all lowlifes, despicable human being. That you want this to continue? What would Jesus say? I mean, you all call yourselves Christians. The people that do this, they all say they're Christians. But Jesus wouldn't be talking someone out of teaching a child to love other people. Jesus would he would encourage that mother to teach your child to love other people unconditionally. But this woman, she had a whole different view. She didn't care. She had a whole different view. People like her can't be helped. But that's why I'm here, because I'm here to spread the word. I'm here to let people know what's going on. I'm here to speak up, not down. I'm here to speak out and not shut up. I just thank you all for joining me so much. As always, you are much appreciated. We'll be back with another installment of racism. I'm hoping to have a guest for that one. I'm trying to get you guys a guest for the next installment. Okay? It may or may not happen. I'm leaning more toward it will, but please tune back in to Steel City Mukbang Variety Pod, and I will see you soon.